Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and today I thought we'd have a quick look at this. This is the floppy drive out of that Amiga 500 that we resurrected a couple of videos back. And I've been playing that Amiga 500, and to be fair, the computer itself, I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. Most 500 meg games that I've tried playing on it. 512k games I've tried playing on it have loaded no problem. The only issue with this drive really is it seems a bit sluggish. I think it is a bit gummed up. Now it's out on the bench, it does actually seem better, but generally speaking, when you put a disc in, when it's in the computer, when you try and eject it, it's not ejecting as well as it should do. You're ending up getting hold of the disc with a pair of tweezers to throw the disc across the floor. Sorry about that. To actually get the disc out, and it should pull out a fair, at least the amount that you can easily get hold of the disc and pull it out. So I think it is a bit gummed up in there. So what I thought we'd do in this video is, I know we'll give the heads a quick clean on the last video, but just perhaps go a little bit more in depth into this floppy drive, and perhaps just give it a bit more of a better clean and see if we can make any improvement to it. I would quite like to keep this one with a original floppy drive in it. I've already got an Amiga, a basic Amiga, my Amiga 600 that's got a Teac in it. I think we might actually have a look at that next, because I still need to see if I can sort the keyboard out on that, or whether I'm going to have to order a new keyboard membrane for it. But that's going to be another video. For this video, let's have a quick look, see if we can make any improvement with this this old floppy drive. Now this is out of an Amiga 500, so it's one of the earlier drives. It's a Teac. It's a Teac FD-235F. This particular model. They used all different makes of floppy drive in the Amigas and the 500 pluses. The 600 and 1200s do use a slightly different drive. I don't know if I've got one kicking around down here. I've got a no, I don't think I've got one kicking around down here at the moment, unfortunately, so I can't really show you the difference. Oh yes, I have. Yes, I have. That's a I think that was out of a 1200. But if we look, a little bit shorter. The mountings all line up the same. The buttons are slightly different. They have a bigger button on the 600 and 1200 style floppy drives. So it won't fit unless you file out a bit of the front of the case to allow clearance for the button. But as well as that, if you look at the back, the connectors are in different places, and the original 500 disk drive ribbon cable is not actually long enough to be able to stretch over to work on that. So you can use one of these drives in 500 and 500 plus, but you need to use an extended floppy cable. You need to modify the case. It's not really worth it. I don't even think you can swap the. No, I was going to say you couldn't even really just swap the buttons over, because the buttons, the way that they mount to the actual drive, are different. Being that I don't think that's a Teac, is it? That's a chin-on drive. I think more of the later ones were chin-on drives. Anyway, that's not the drive that we're looking at in this. That one I think's got bad heads in it. From somewhat, not from me, I will say, from someone not knowing what they were doing when they were cleaning the heads on it. Anyway, let's have a quick squiz in here. Now there should be a screw at the back here that you have to take out before you can lift the cover off this, but it's missing on this drive, and it was missing when we actually first started looking at the computer. So there's a good chance someone had been in this drive before I got hold of it. Probably just to clean the heads, and lost the screw. I didn't bother putting it back in. Anyway, let's get in there. It's I mean, we did do a basic clean on this, but it does need a really good clean. It's pretty grim in there. And as I said, the mechanism just feels a bit sluggish, really. So we'll probably add some new grease. First thing we'll do is give it a damn good clean in there. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll get the old Johnson & Johnsons out, some isopropyl, and we'll go in at first and we'll just give it a really good clean down. I can see dust balls and stuff in there already. I'll just get in with my little brush there, around the two switches, because you've got which ones are your two switches? You've got a disc select switch, which the Amiga it's how the Amiga tells that you've just put a disc in the drive to start reading it, and then you've got a switch for to see whether the disc is right enabled or right protected. I presume that, because these are it uses double density discs, doesn't it? So there's a switch there, which is where you'd expect the high density switch to be, but I don't presume it is a high density switch. I'm not sure why they have three, unless them two are just connected together. This is a long time since I really went in depth in one of these drives, I've got to admit. Anyway, well, let's get in there and start giving it a bit of a clean. I've got one game that I know the game works, or at least it worked last time I played it, and that weren't that long ago. And it should run on a unexpanded A500, but for some reason it just doesn't want to seem to load past disk 1 when I try it on this drive. Disk 1 seems to load alright, but disk 2, it gets about halfway through and then just comes up with a guru error. I think it's a bit odd. So I know that game, I've played that game on another 500 not that long ago, and it played fine. So after a good clean, we might see if that'll actually play on this then. I'd like to get all this this out, but I don't want to disassemble this this drive too much if I can help it. I think it will just be a case of getting a little bit of grease down down here. I believe this is one of the drives that you've got to be a bit careful about when you're working. You don't want to over disassemble it. I'm not 100% sure, but I remember I was watching one of Gadget's videos on Gadget UK, sorry, as videos on servicing a few of these drives that he got. I think he got a job lot of them, and this board at the back here. He took it off just, I think he was looking for bag caps or something like that, and he didn't realise at first that the what's it called? The little sensor down there which detects where the heads are, instead of being on this die-cast part of the frame, like it is on a lot of drives, is actually on that board down there. And those screw holes are slotted, and that board can actually move backwards and forwards, and you knock the drive majorly out of alignment by taking that board off, and it's a mare to get it all lined up and working again. And they do look like they might be elongated. I'm not 100% sure if it was this model of drive, but it does seem to be that the little opto sensor that detects where the heads are is actually part of that board rather than being mounted on the die-cast on this particular drive. So it's something to be mindful of when you're filling them out. Just don't just take all the screws out, because you might seriously bugger your alignment up. It's certainly looking a bit cleaner in there, and that's just from the first quick clean. I'll get the other side moistened up, and I want to get in there and see if I can get it a bit cleaner. Don't think we need to attack the heads, because I've already, like I said, we give the heads a clean when we first had a look at the computer, and they weren't too bad. I have a feeling someone had been in there previously. I know that Amiga was horribly yellowed, but I've a feeling that it was, you know, quite a well looked after computer by its previous owner. It's just yellowed, it's not bashed about or damaged, you know. Like I said, it looks like they'd obviously replaced the power supply at some point. Yeah, it was filthy dirty in there. Get all the crud off that stepper drive there, the worm drive off the stepper. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm literally just going in, and anywhere I can see some muck and rubbish, I'm just using the Q-tip to remove it. You can see it's pretty filthy in there. I'm just going to see if I can move the heads forwards so we can see if we can get behind there. I'm just using my finger just to gently rotate the stepper there so we can wind the heads forwards, and I can clean behind. Right, that's fully forwards. We can get to the rails a bit. We can get to the rails a bit better now. I want to clean them rails off, and then we'll apply some fresh grease to them. In fact, we'll clean something else before we do that. But let's get in here. We'll give the rails down in there. Really, you just want to go anywhere where all the dust can set and congeal. I think this might have belonged to a smoker. I don't know. There seems to be a residue on everything that's coming off of the isoprop. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but as I go over that, there's like a residue coming off all the metalwork, like something's condensed onto it. Now all I can really smell is isoprop now. I should have given it a whiff test before. There's a very, very slight nicotine-y kind of whiff to it. It's not strong though. Not like some of the old radios and TVs that I've worked on in the past, where it absolutely reeks of it. Right, we'll leave cleaning that there for now, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to turn my attention to these two little switches at the front, because these can cause issues. And one thing I have, it's not been a major issue, but I have noticed that it doesn't always detect the disc on first insertion. Sometimes you have to put the disc in and it just sits there, and you have to eject the disc and put it in again, and then generally speaking then it'll read it. And it's pretty telltale that the little disc select switch is just probably a little bit gummed up and just needs a little bit of switch cleaner in there just to help it along. So it's not got terrible with this. It's not as though it's not seeing any discs or anything. I mean, I have had them like that. In fact, in the past I've actually swapped these little switches out, took one off a scrap drive and swapped it out when they've gone completely and they've just not been responsive. But let's usually you can get away with just a little bit of contact cleaner, a little bit of switch cleaner, and just giving them. In fact, I need to get some more switch cleaner. I'm running a bit low on this. Just get a little bit in there, like that. And just get a screwdriver, and we'll just work them back and up and down a little bit. There we go. And we'll do the same with that switch over there, because I can't 100% remember off the top of my head which one's the read write switch. and which is the disk detect switch. But if we do them both, we're not going to have any problems with either function, are we? There we go, a little bit in there. Again, we'll just get the screwdriver on it and we'll just work it up and down a few times. Like that. That should do. We'll just go in with a Q-tip and just see if we can get any excess of the switch cleaner up. Just like that. That button's dirty. Let's see if we can clean the button while we're here. That's filthy. Let's get a bit more isopropyl on that one. Just see if we can give this button a quick clean while we're here. I just didn't realise quite how dirty it is. There we go. Many years of people's fingers prodding the button to retrieve the disc. There we go. That's a bit nicer. I think that's pretty much everywhere we need to clean at the moment. I've done the rails. I've done all that down there. Have a quick look in. It's a little bit dirty in there. I haven't quite got. You know, it was much worse, or there was other problems. I'd probably try and disassemble the drive a little bit more, but I don't think it's going to be necessary in this case. Just see if we can hoover up any final remnants of dust in there. There we go. Yeah, pretty filthy, but that's certainly looking a lot cleaner. Right. The question is, where do we need to add the grease? I think basically on all these pivot points here, and then on the worm drive there. Sorry, you can't see that. On the worm drive there, and then on the rail down there. And I'm not sure whether that should have grease on it or not. It doesn't appear to have any remains of grease, so I think that should probably be best left ungreased. Because if anything tells me from working on old record players, sometimes there's places where you really don't want grease. You do just want a friction movement. Right. I'm going to use some of this. It's a spray-on grease. It's quite a good grease actually, but we're not obviously going to spray it on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spray a little bit onto a piece of scrap cardboard, and then we'll use either a Q-tip or a cocktail stick or something like that to actually apply it where we need it. There we go. Got a bit of there we go. Got some grease on the got some grease on there. Get that out of the way. And we're not going to need very much of it. There's probably far more than we'll ever need on that. Just take a little bit of the grease, and we just want to apply a bit to that worm drive there. Not too much. You can over grease things. A little bit on that runner at the bottom there, the rail, because that's what the head slides up and down on. That really does need to be well lubricated. And then really what I want to do is just get some on these pivot points for the disc mechanism here, because I think a feeling this is probably where it's sticking. Just a tiny little bit in like that. We don't want to go mad with the grease. We don't want to get it in parts of the drive where we really don't want it. Just a little bit on all these pivots, like that. I think that should be about enough. a little point down there, which I think we'll just put a little bit of grease on. Right, okay. We'll put a disc in a few times. That's just helping just to get that grease to, I can see that's better. It's actually amazing as you operate the disc like that, you can feel the mechanism freeing up a little bit. Yeah. I think it was just, definitely was just really a bit gummed up on them pivot points there. In fact, just while we've got a disc in it, we might just add a tiny little bit more. Because you can get a little bit further. Just add a little bit more to those pivot points there. So I think that's where the issue was coming from. It's those little those pivot points. Oh, we have ended up using all that grease I got out. There we go. So I have a feeling that's why it were getting a bit awkward to retrieve discs. That's definitely better. 100% better that. Now I'll put the cover back on because I'm quite happy with how that's working mechanically now. Let's get the cover back on. Remember, this drive, it was basically working, it was just a little bit flaky. Like I said, the discs tend to get stuck there. You didn't always, when you put a disc in, it didn't always recognise immediately. For the most, it has been reading discs alright. That's really just been the major issue, so I don't think there's going to be any problems on the electronics side. And I think, if I remember correctly, we did do a quick sniff test on those three capacitors there. I suppose I could switch the iron on and just do another quick smell test on them, just to be on the safe side, because they would be fairly easy to swap out. They're not even surface mount, they're just standard 22 UF 10 volt capacitors. So I don't think we'd have a major issue swapping them out if we needed to. I believe, in fact, we can have a quick look. Now there is, in fact, there's a little bit of fluff there, let's get rid of that. Get in there so we can just defluff that. There we are. There is at least one capacitor on that board there. You can see an electrolytic capacitor right in there, just behind where the power connector is. But as I said, I'm very reluctant to take that board off, because it could, I'm pretty sure in this case it is, because it's put some green sealant on them screws to actually mark the position. I'm really reluctant to take that board off, because I don't think there is an issue with the electronics on it. Obviously, like I say, if it weren't reading or it were doing other funny things, my first suspect, especially if it was not running, perhaps running slow or something, or running fast, my first suspect would be them three capacitors there. Just be testing them. But if you had to go further, yeah, you would have to take that board off, check them, at least that one capacitor that I know there's definitely there. There may be a couple more under there as well. But like I said, that's last resort really, because then you've got all the hassle of getting that board in exactly the right position again to get the heads lined up. I think my iron's up to temperature now, so we'll do a really quick smell test just around them three. I mean, this isn't the be all and end all of tests, it is just a quick are they leaking or not kind of test. But if we just warm the board up around where the capacitors are. I can't smell any nasty fishy smell or anything. I mean, they could have drifted slightly, they could be... No, there's no, nasty fishy smell anywhere around them capacitors, so I may, I'm not sure, I've probably got 22 UFs in stock, but to be honest, for now, unless it starts misbehaving, if it starts misbehaving, then yeah, I'll probably swap them capacitors out, but for now, I'm not going to actually really bother. I think what we're going to do now is, I'll pause the video, I'll just get this whip back into the A500 and we can just have a quick test, see if it'll perhaps load that game that wasn't loading last time, and see if we can actually retrieve the discs from the side of the Amiga without having to get a pair of pliers. So back in a sec. Okay, we're back, and as you can see I've got the computer all fully reassembled again. And I've dug out 2 games which I couldn't get to load on this computer. Now I have tested these on one of my other Amigas, and both games definitely load, they definitely work, but I couldn't get either of them to work on this 500, and they're both games which should just run on a unexpanded 500. You know, they only need half a meg. We've got F-29 Retaliator. Now that one, actually the first disc does load, but when you get into the second disc, you start getting, it gets about halfway through loading the second disc, and then it just crashes out. So we'll see if we can get those 2 to load now. But first thing first is the major issue I was having this was discs sticking. So let's grab a random Amiga disc and we'll try that. Stick it in. Press the button. That's better. They're coming out. That's a lot better. It's actually pinging out to the point where I don't even have to, you know, tease it out or anything. It's popping quite nicely out the drive. So I think we've solved that sticky drive issue anyway. Yeah, that's much better. Anyway, let's get this thing switched on and we'll see if we can get some of this software that wouldn't work to actually load. So we're up there. Let's try F-29 Retaliator first. This is actually one of the few games which is mine from back in the day, back from when I had my 500 plus in the 90s. I think this is probably the only Amiga game, boxed Amiga game. I've got some blank backup discs back then still, but I think this is probably the only actual boxed Amiga game. Might have Blood Money somewhere that I bought back then, but that's the only one I can find at the moment. All the other ones are ones I've got, you know, later on. Let's try this F-29 Retaliator. I shouldn't expect to have a problem with this. I'll get you up on the screen so you can see. I shouldn't expect us really having too much problem with the first disc, because this disc did load last time when I did try it. So it was when we got onto the second disc and it wouldn't. It just got like part way through and then come up with the red screen, you know, the black screen with the red Guru meditation error on it. Hopefully we'll get this up now. You have to press a key, I can't remember yet. Tell you what, the graphics on this game are quite impressive for, like I say, an unexpanded A500. Let's have us in there. Yeah, it's not the best mouse in the world, this one, and it's not got a map. We might have a mouse extravaganza and go through all the 3 tank mice that I've got and give them a bit of a going over. Let's have a European battlefield, shall we? And then let's go. I think we can get a game up. I haven't played this game in quite a long time, I must admit. Mainly because I was intending to play it on this, but it wouldn't load. Right, let's try this too. Now this is where it went wrong last time. I got part way into loading this disc and then, oh, disc A. I don't think we got that far along before. Let's try that. Yeah, there we go. That seems to be playing. Yeah. So we didn't get that far last time. Anyway, this is not really going to be about playing games. Let's and again, that ejected nicely. Let's reset the computer. Pity I've not got the instruction manual for this anymore. Just got the box and the discs. Now we've also got this this bad company. Now this came with this computer, but like I said, when I tried it, I couldn't get this to work on this computer. But I did get it to work on my 500 plus. So. And it is, I think it is a 500 game. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's, when I read through it, it said it's good for half a meg, so let's give it a try again. See if this will load this time. It got to about here last time and then just wouldn't do anymore. It just the drive churned for a bit and then it come up with a Guru meditation error. So let's see, is it going to get any further this time? Oh yes, yes it has. Let's see if the game's going to load. Don't you love the cheesy music that these games have? Let's see if that's still loading. We'll see if the game will actually load and we can play it. I've actually got it connected up to a little pair of speakers because I've realised that one of the amps has blown in these in my test monitor here, so I'm only get audio through one channel. Right, let's see what. Anyway, it's not about playing the game. But yeah, I think we've had a success because that nearly shot that disc into my hand then. That's brilliant. So yeah, I think we've sorted the disk drive out in it. Got two games there that wouldn't. Unfortunately, I don't have a massive amount of software which will run on an unexpanded A500. Most of the software I've got really needs 1 meg. So in the future, I think what we're going to do, we're certainly going to have a look at some of the mice. I want to have a look at the original power supply and do a recap on that, so we know we've got a good power supply for this A500. I don't want to go I don't really want to change the disk drive for a Gotek or anything like that. I'd rather kind of keep this with a 3.5-inch floppy drive in it. That's part of the reason why I've been through and actually serviced it up. But what I might consider doing is seeing about upgrading, if it's possible, to upgrade it to 1 meg of onboard RAM. It just make life a little bit easier. I know I could put a 0.5 meg trapdoor expansion and what have you. But if it's only got half a meg on board and it is one of the boards that's possible to upgrade to 1 meg, we might have a look at just doing a 1 meg chip upgrade on the board. That should be quite a nice fun little video. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. I hope you enjoyed that little extra bit of Amiga repair. I know some people really do enjoy seeing me fix the drives and things like that on these old things. So hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.